So while finding that perfect 700 credit score tenant with no background history and excellent payments on everything is exactly what we're looking for, we have to be realistic as landlords. There's many occasions where we are not going to find anyone above a 650, and most of the time kind of funneling around that 600 credit range, sometimes even lower. This is especially true in the city that I invested in, Baltimore City, but this is really a problem all across the nation. Many people do not know how to manage their credit score or even their finances. Education is not taught in high school, and it's certainly not encouraged in college and many communities. So today I want to go over what I look for when all my options are around that 600 credit range, lower end, maybe tenants, lower end qualification standards. What do I look for to qualify a tenant and know that they will still pay the rent despite their credit score? So let's go ahead and talk about it. So in our society in America, unfortunately, there is very little emphasis on financial education. Most people are not given that. It's completely left up to parents. And if the parents don't have that educational level, then they're not gonna be able to give it to their kids. Many parents, oftentimes in poorer communities, or even compounded even worse, but the fact that they have to work multiple jobs, often can't train their kids in these things, or even if they do work those multiple jobs, everything around them is sort of scamming them into bad credit or financial decisions. We're talking about payday loans and many of the other things that these neighborhoods kind of run into. And this problem compounds itself even further across the nation in the fact that we have a consumerist culture that emphasizes more on spending money on 7 boxes of shoes for a TikTok challenge rather than actually educating people on how to make their money grow. So as a landlord, we have to be understanding of their situations and be able to do the translation for them with their credit report. Many people are going to be uncomfortable sharing their credit report and going to have a lot of reasons for why their credit is the way they are, but there honestly is many different reasons that someone might have poor credit. If you watch some of my other videos, then you might already know how the entire credit algorithm is structured. We're not gonna go into that, so make sure you subscribe and like the video to make sure you don't miss content like that, and how you can very easily boost your credit score 100 points by just a couple of tricks in a single month. Many of these tenants do not know this information, so I do talk about it, but we're not gonna go into this video. What we need to do is train you on how to translate it. So you will need a fundamental understanding of the credit system and how it works in order to translate their credit report. What we're gonna do is go into 3 different credit reports today, and I'm gonna talk about what exactly do I look for to qualify them as a tenant. Many things are very simple on their report, and it's not really as scary as it looks. So let's go ahead into the 3 credit reports. All right, so the first example credit report, and these are real world examples, by the way. I just got these credit reports. Remember, I manage 20 properties in Baltimore City. So this is a real world credit report. This is one with a 526 credit score. So immediately off the bat, you're like, okay, absolutely not if you're looking for that golden 700. But like I said, good luck finding anyone over 650. So we're gonna have to look at that, and we're gonna have to just understand that's what's gonna happen. Now remember, in higher end areas, you might be easily able to find it, but in most parts of the country, this is what you're looking at. So 526 credit score, a 100% utilization ratio, $0 in monthly payments, and total debt of $14,264. So already right off the bat, I'm looking at a couple things. One, their utilization rate is extremely high, but their debt is very low. This is most likely because they're pulling out debt that has a very low ceiling, a very low limit, maybe a credit card with only a $500 limit, and they've used 200 of it. Well, if they did that, then their utilization is already gonna hit like 30%. Now, if they maxed out a card and that card is, for a $10,000 card, then we got a problem. But if they just have an auto loan and that's it, well, then their ceiling is the limit of the auto loan, and then they have to pay down that debt in order for it to lower the utilization rate. So essentially, we have to look into what's going on with the utilization rate. This could probably be easily solved, especially when we look at their debt being kind of low. I mean, $14,000 sounds like a lot, but the average American debt is about 10 grand. So $0 in monthly payments, tells me that they probably have no revolving credit. So this is interesting. We have to look in here. Revolving credit being a credit card. So if they have no payments, maybe it's not an auto loan. I don't know, right? Like it could be a student loan and forbearance. Let's check it out. So when we go through it, we now look at the chart and it shows where they're at. So $13,400 is an auto loan. They have $490 in collections and $207 in a revolving charge account, and then $167 in an other. So already we're looking at it and okay, they got an auto loan, that's most of their debt. They do have about $500 in collections. It's really not that much, and it probably is not rent. It's probably not someone who's taking them to court for rent, so that's a good thing. That would be a much larger number. So it's probably something very small. So let's check it out. Maybe a phone bill. And then revolving accounts, it looks like they're not charging very much to their credit. So then we go into the payment history of all of this and we look at 2 accounts ever late, 5 years since they've been late, 1 account in collections, and 0 public records. So what we're looking at here is the fact that they have only 2 accounts late. We want to look at how many total accounts they have and figure out, okay, are they late most of the time, or they have 2 accounts and they're only late on those 2 accounts? Also, it's been 5 years since they've ever been late on anything. This is huge. People change over time. We do have to acknowledge that. We have to look at where were they at 5 years ago versus now. Maybe they got much better job. Maybe they got much better discipline. Maybe they dealt with something. The fact that it's taken 5 years from now is a huge boon in my eyes and a reason that I feel much more comfortable looking at this. And the fact that he only has 1 account in collections is a good thing to me. So let's continue to look at the tenants report here. So the next part I'm not going to really put on the screen exactly just for privacy's sake, but essentially what we're looking at is exactly what we expected, is an auto loan, and that auto loan was essentially taken back through collections process. The car was taken back. So what that $500 amount that they still owe in collections tells me is that they owed money on the car. As we know, cars are depreciating assets. Oftentimes people buy brand new cars and they should never buy a brand new car, but they think they should, and so they do, and then the car immediately loses value off the lot. So if they can't pay for it, then essentially they now owe money when the car gets repossessed. So this is something that I'm looking at. This happened exactly as it says years ago. So we look at it and they generally have codes where they'll say each month how it was reported. And in this case, these codes reach far reaching back. Now, because the account is not technically resolved, they're still reporting on it. So we do keep that in mind. But remember, this happened a long time ago and the car was already repossessed. We can ask the person, do they already have a car? Do they have a new car? Is it, what's going on with that situation? And if they don't have one, then we can probably look at, okay, person's now just trying to make it by without getting another car, without putting themselves in more debt. And the rest of it that we're looking at is pretty much things coming from other financial institutions, maybe funding, and also just various credit systems. So it seems like this person tried to get money, maybe applied for a loan, maybe one of those quick loans that people have, or actually one of the worst ones they can do is the advanced paycheck ones. A lot of neighborhoods in poorer communities are scammed a lot. Remember, they don't have as much financial education in their systems, so they have payday loans, they have all these advances that they pay massive amounts of interest on and often cannot get out of them. And they are stuck in a lot of these different loopholes. A lot of the systems developed around them are designed to scam them out of their money. So it's not surprising to me that they have some of these on their credit report. However, we have to note that many of these have very low histories. Either they were 5 years ago, as stated, according to this video, it's 2020, so 2015 at the time, and then also, maybe it was a quick thing and then they immediately defaulted and then just stopped, and that's now moving forward. So essentially we're looking at it where most of their stuff is a long time ago. Most of it is very small in the debt, so it's not like they're paying a ton going forward. And we have to look at, okay, how do they operate now? And as of now, it looks like they do pay their rent. So the easiest thing to do is to try to find their landlord, make sure you verify that their landlord they're stating is their landlord, verify that person owns the property and is not just a friend of theirs, willing to cover things up. And even I would go a landlord back if possible, because sometimes maybe if they're a bad tenant, a current landlord's willing to lie just to get them out of the house. So, you may want to go a landlord back if possible, but basically we want to just look at all these things. So this to me, is not that bad of a credit report when it comes to a 600 score. So let's go into another example that I would look into. By the way, I said 600 score, but it is, 526. So I'm saying a below 600 score. So let's go into our next credit report. So our next credit report is a 523 score. Now, the main difference between the last one and this one is this person is younger, and I think this is a very important detail. This person is in their low 20s. The last person was in their upper 40s. So there's big differences on the two. We have to factor in age. The fact that one person only has such a, the previous person had such kind of a low amount of discrepancies at such a older age is, something we can look into, especially when things only happened like 5 years ago. We don't know what happened, maybe a divorce, whatnot. We got to ask. This person's much younger. So the younger they are, they make a different set of mistakes. And I'm going to go into exactly the kind of mistakes they use. So first we have a 98% utilization rate. So once again, this is really because their limits are not high enough, which they could have solved simply by getting an authorized user for a credit card, another person to make them an authorized user, which instantly would get their credit score 100 points up, or they could have just simply asked for a request of their limits on their credit card, but not using it. These are easy ways to solve this, and they just don't know how because it's not taught. So now they have a total monthly payment of $335, which is broken into $280 in an auto loan and $55 in credit cards. So this is not exactly a typical $280 car loan. It just means that they probably pulled out something that might be about $15,000 or less. So it's not something incredibly in ordinary. I'm not sure if it's a new car, but it's probably a used car. And, it doesn't seem like that much. This person's not getting a lot withdrawn from them. So let's go into the total debt. So the total debt is $11,176, and we're looking at the auto loan being $10,390. So obviously, once again, this car is cheap. So this person is not showing financial irresponsibility by having that much debt. That's actually a very cheap car. This person is actually just trying to get what they need to get by. So I find that very promising. Now there's $786 on a credit card, but the average credit card debt in America is $6,000 per American. So this is also not really that high. They're actually not maxing this whatsoever. So what that tells me is their utilization rate is exactly for the reasons that I mentioned above. And also this is more reinforced by the fact that the person is so young. They simply aren't being allowed credit. I mean, they're probably being denied maybe for different bank accounts, maybe if they haven't even tried. Remember, a lot of young people come in thinking that credit cards are evil and that they shouldn't use them at all, and that's definitely not true, which I have another video on. So if this person had subscribed to my channel, maybe he would have known that, but hey, this is basically his situation. So let's go into the account histories. So we're looking at accounts late is 1, and then times since late is 2 months ago. So this is a new blemish, all right? So the last person was 5 years ago. It's a little easier. This person only 2 months ago, the person was late. So we need to look into that. They have their collections accounts are all clear, so nothing in collections. That's perfect, especially at a young age. It's like, how did you already get into collections? Which unfortunately is a reality for many Americans. So let's go ahead and look at exactly what was late and what, how long ago, why they were late. So what we're looking at here is that the person was late on 2 payments and only 2 payments. So they have multiple credit cards and they had 2 payments that were late and they were 60 days late. However, they were caught up. So note that it has not been sent to collections. They were caught up and then they've been current ever since. This could represent a minor hiccup. A lot of times there is clerical errors and people suddenly, get said, oh, you're late now. Many people have gone through this where their mortgage suddenly is not being paid and they're like, what the hell is going on? Maybe a credit card expired or something that they were paying with, and or maybe an account, simply the money was moved out and different movement of the money made it where the amount bounced and didn't try again and the person wasn't aware of it. Emails go to spam. This happens. So you need to be aware of these reasons. So in this case, I would ask the person, okay, you were late only twice, what happened there? And most likely we're gonna find it's some sort of clerical error. In this case, I would absolutely trust it. It doesn't look like they're financially irresponsible. It doesn't look like they're late all the time. It just looks like, okay, there's a little hiccup and they paid it and now they're all in the clear as of going forward. So the last thing I'm gonna talk about with this person, which I'm not gonna necessarily show too much on screen, is the fact that this person has a lot of inquiries. We're talking about banks and banks. All right, so keep in mind that inquiries can be made on behalf of the person. So they could be parents that are doing this. There's lots and lots of banks. The thing is, this person has maybe a total of 20 inquiries, but yet only has a few lines of credit. So I'm not sure if this person is just trying desperately to pull out credit and is constantly getting denied based on income, or maybe they're applying for multiple different loans for a car. It's a little difficult to tell. Now, some of them are rental inquiries, some of them are car inquiries, many of them are bank consumer inquiries, which leads me to believe maybe a credit card, but the person doesn't have that many credit cards. So we need to ask the person, what was this about? What are all these inquiries? Because honestly, we probably don't want them getting into a lot more debt just because of it. So this is where I would educate the tenant and tell him, or her, that what is going on here is that your inquiries are actually hurting your credit score, making it harder for them to rent, to get lines of credit, educate them. That is what's happening. Now, inquiries only affect you for a few months or to 6 months max. It kind of depends on where the inquiries are coming from. If they're all relative to the same thing, like if they're all rental inquiries within a very short period of time, then they all kind of go away very quickly. But if there are many, many inquiries into multiple different things over the course of months, that is negatively affecting their credit and they don't even realize that. So this is something that they can be educated on, and they probably would stop, knowing, especially if they had a higher credit score, they may even be able to waive their security deposit, which a lot of people don't even know about. Many landlords do waive security deposits for above average credit scores. So helping them out, they may be very, very willing to work with this. So I think at that point, you're kind of understanding, okay, those are low credit scores that, they're showing that, there wasn't much of a problem. Maybe we can reason around it. Now you're gonna get a lot of credit scores, and I'll just skim into this last one, that are just awful and they're really hard to work with. So had one tenant who applied, had a 430 credit score. So this is one of the just absolute lowest credit scores that you can have. The person has a low amount of debt now, but has just tons of stuff going through collections. And, sometimes they'll admit, yeah, they were stupid and that they are redoing their ways. They're, amending their ways. And this is tough because you're going to be told this a lot. You're going to be told, oh, yep, that was just back in that time and I'm remending my ways. Now, this person had an eviction on their record, which should automatically be a red flag. Now, they explained the situation as they lost their business during a time 2 years ago, and that's the reason the eviction was placed. Now, I did call the previous landlords and hey, everything was fine, for current payments. But what I decided to do was go ahead and pull bank statements. So this is where I say to find other pieces of corroborating information. And through those bank statements, found out that the person was frequently late on rent. All I did was look at payments being withdrawn in the amount that they said for the rent amount, and it was frequently being late. Now the person was like, oh yeah, notice I'm paying fees, late fees, and they're okay with that. This is something you're gonna have to acknowledge. So this person's probably gonna be late. So in this case, I decided not to rent to this person. I decided that it was probably way too much of a risk and they needed a little bit more history, and I'd rather pass that on to somebody else. So sometimes it is a very heartfelt reason. The person, if everything's true, they lost their business, they understand what they did was wrong, and they understand, how to go going forward. But unfortunately, if it looks like it's too difficult to tell, then it probably is something you need to worry about. It is very difficult for most people to get out of old habits, especially if they're surrounded by the same group of friends, family, and everything that influenced them maybe to get into a habit in the first place. All right, so that is it. I hope you liked that video. Like and subscribe below. I definitely am trying to give a lot of educational content on how to, rent in the city and how to, really screen tenants. That's something I'm gonna be going forward with a little bit more, showing you how to do that, how I do it anyway. So let me know, comment below. Do you only accept 700 credit scores? If so, let me know on that. I mean, like I said, it's going to be a little difficult in many parts of the city, many parts of the country, but hey, it is the safest way to go. I can understand it. So I'll see you all in the next video, and I'll talk to you all real soon.